Let's take a look at one of the hardest mods that I have played. I'm of course talking about 1944 Downfall. And from the moment you hit play, it becomes painfully obvious that this is not a normal Hearts of Iron 4 experience. This is not about building something. This is about inheriting an absolute disaster that is unfolding in front of your eyes and trying hopelessly to manage the collapse. The entire concept of the mod revolves around one simple but brutal idea. What if you skipped everything that makes Hearts of Iron 4 comfortable and only played the part where everything goes wrong? By January 1944, the Axis is already losing on every front, with the Allied offensives in the west and Soviet offensive in the east accelerating towards Germany's borders. The war is no longer about strategy in the traditional sense, it's about damage control, and that shift in perspective is what defines the entire experience. When you first load in the game, especially as Germany, the situation doesn't look just bad. It feels overwhelmingly bad, in a way that even the most hardcore Hearts of Iron 4 scenarios don't quite capture. There's no warm-up phase, no careful build-up of industry, no early expansion. You're immediately confronted with a front line that stretches from France to deep into Eastern Europe, and everywhere you look, something is either collapsing or about to. The Soviets are already preparing massive offensives. The Allies are gearing up for D-Day, and your own infrastructure is being slowly erased by constant bombing. The mod doesn't ease you in, it throws you directly into the fire. Playing Germany in this mod feels like trying to hold everything together that is already falling apart. Your army is stretched massively thin. You're constantly under threat. Even your air force, which might normally be your lifeline, is outnumbered and often ineffective. Many players quickly realize that contesting air superiority is absolutely impossible early on, forcing them to adapt desperate strategies just to mitigate damage rather than actually win control of the skies. That alone tells you everything about the balance of power. The Eastern Front in particular becomes a nightmare scenario. Soviet offensives are relentless, and stopping them requires near perfect positioning, strong defensive templates, and a willingness to sacrifice territory. But even if you manage to stabilize the line temporarily, it rarely feels secure. There's always a sense that the next push could break through everything, and often it does. The Western Front is no better. When D-Day happens, it doesn't feel like an event, it feels like a death sentence for you. Trying to hold France while also dealing with the Soviet stretches your already limited resources beyond their limits. And many players find themselves forcing to choose which front matters more right now, knowing full well that choosing the wrong one can end the campaign in a matter of months. What's fascinating is that the mod manages to create tension, not through scripted events alone, but through the sheer imbalance of force. You're fighting enemies that are much stronger, much better supplied, and attacking from every possible direction. The AI, while of course not perfect, applies constant pressure, and even small mistakes can cascade into a catastrophic failure. A single breakthrough can turn into a full front collapse, and within weeks, recovering from that is absolutely impossible. Outside of Germany, the experience becomes less focused, but still interesting. Other nations exist within the same collapsing world, but they often feel secondary to the main scenario. The mod is clearly designed with Germany at its center, and while playing other countries can be engaging, it doesn't quite capture the same intensity. Still, the broader world reflects the same late war dynamics with coups, shifting alliances, and collapsing fronts, adding to the overall atmosphere. But don't forget, they are still your allies, or what's left of them. Because one of the most brutal and honest, most underrated parts of 1944 Downfall is not just that you are losing, it's that the people who are supposed to help you are already halfway out the door. Romania, for example, is probably the single most important ally you have at the start, and also the one that hurts the most when you lose it. Historically, Romania was absolutely critical to Germany's war effort, especially because of its oil, but by 1944 that relationship has already been falling apart. In reality, Romania switched sides in August 1944 after a coup that joined the Allies and turning it itself against Germany overnight. And this mod reflects that really well. You start the game relying on Romania because of all their oil, They hold their own southern front, and they act as a buffer against the Soviet state. And they help stretch the enemy lines a bit. But there's always this looming sense that they won't hold. And when they flip, they don't, and they often do that, it's not just a diplomatic loss, it's a disaster for you. Suddenly, your southern flank is wide open. Soviet forces flood through the Balkans. Your defensive lines collapse faster than you can react to it. It's a slow decline, it's not a chain reaction. One moment you are holding, and the next you're completely gone. And then we have, of course, our friend Italy, or already gone. You could call it already gone as well, because Italy is either already knocked out, barely holding on, or strategically irrelevant. By 1944, Italy had effectively ceased to be a reliable Axis partner, and the mod doesn't pretend otherwise. If anything, Italy becomes another front you have to worry about, another coastline to manage, and another liability. Instead of helping you, they often create more problems, and they are not worth to hold it. And to be honest, this is also the part where the mod becomes problematic. The difficulty is undeniably very high, but it sometimes crosses the line from challenging into frustration. There are moments where it feels less like you're being outplayed and more like you're being overwhelmed by sheer number and bonuses. The Allies and Soviets are heavily favored, and while that reflects the historical situation to some extent, it can also make the experience feel very unbalanced. Winning doesn't always feel like a reward for good strategy. It sometimes feels like surviving despite the odds through sheer persistence and repeated attempts. But the mod offers a wide variety of solid content, including historical events, modified focus trees, and detailed setups that reflect the state of the war in 1944. The inclusion of events like the D-Day or the Soviet offensives and political shifts adds immersion and helps ground the scenario in reality. In the end, 1944 Downfall is not a mod for everyone. It's not meant to be balanced in the traditional sense. And it's certainly not beginner friendly. But for players who are looking for something different, something intense and punishing, and deeply immersive, it offers an experience that few other Hearts of Iron 4 mods can match. It strips away the comfort of gradual progression and replaces it with a constant pressure and uncertainty. And maybe that's the best way to describe it. Alright, I hope you enjoyed my rather short video of Hearts of Iron 4 1944 Downfall mod. If you want to see any other mod, anything else, let me know, of course, in the comments. And I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!